It was a crisp October evening when Ella decided to take the long road through Blackwood Forest. The locals always spoke in hushed tones about the woods, warning travelers to avoid them after sunset, but Ella had driven through many times before without incident. Tonight was different, though. As the trees thickened and the twilight deepened, an uneasy feeling crept into her chest. Her headlights flickered and her car began to sputter before coming to a complete stop. Cursing her luck, she stepped out to check the engine, but something about the quiet woods seemed wrong. The usual chirps of crickets and rustling leaves were absent, replaced by a heavy, oppressive silence. She fumbled for her phone, but there was no signal. Glancing up, she saw a faint orange glow in the distance. A cabin. Desperate for help, Ella made her way through the tangled underbrush, the light growing larger with every step. When she reached the clearing, the cabin stood old and dilapidated, its wooden walls crumbling as if the forest itself had tried to reclaim it. The door creaked open on its own. Inside, the air was stale, filled with the scent of decay and old wood. Strange symbols were carved into the walls, and bones, human, animal, were scattered on the floor. A shiver ran down her spine, but she pressed on, hoping to find something, anything, that could help. A faint whisper called her name. Her breath caught in her throat. "Hello," she called, but only silence answered. She turned, ready to leave, when she saw it, a shadow moving across the room, not attached to anything living. Ella Secongelo. The shadow twisted and grew, becoming more solid, more menacing. A figure stepped out of the darkness, a man, or what was left of one. His face was twisted with rage, eyes hollow and black as the void. In his hand, he clutched an old woodsman's axe, its blade dripping with something dark and thick. "You shouldn't have come here," he rasped, his voice a deathly whisper. Panicking, Ella sprinted for the door, but the ground beneath her feet seemed to twist, her legs dragging through an unseen force. She could feel the figure closing in, the weight of his curse bearing down on her. The legend of the woodsman was true. The townspeople had spoken of him. A man driven mad by isolation, cursed to roam the woods after he had taken the lives of his family in a fit of rage. No one who saw him ever returned. Her scream echoed through the empty forest as the door slammed shut behind her. The next morning, when the sun rose, Ella's car was found on the edge of the woods, but there was no sign of her. The only clue left behind was a trail of blood leading into the trees. The cabin, of course, was never found, and Blackwood Forest grew just a little darker.